The Dallas Mavericks fall to 9-14 on the season after suffering a 31-point beatdown at the hands of the Golden State Warriors, 147-116. This is the Gray Area right here on YouTube. My name is Kevin Gray, of course, of 105.3 The Fan. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel right here at Kevin Gray Sports, and you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, also at Kevin Gray Sports. This comes from ESPN Stats and Info. The Mavericks became the first team in the shot clock era to lose by 30 points after scoring 75-plus points in the first half. The Mavericks made 20 three-pointers and still lost by 31 points. No other team in NBA history had lost by more than 15 points in those kinds of situations. The Dallas Mavericks made more threes than they did twos. They made 38 field goals against the Golden State Warriors. 20 of those were three-pointers, and they still lost by 31 points. Kelly Oubre, who coming into this game only averaged 12 points on the season, was able to go off for a career-high 40 points in this basketball game. The defense was obviously pathetic and putrid, as it has been most of the season for the Dallas Mavericks. They gave up over 57% shooting from the field, over 51% from the three-point line to the Golden State Warriors. Draymond Green had an absolutely spectacular performance with 11 points, 15 assists, and also 6 rebounds. Stephen Curry, 28 points. Some dude named Juan Toscano Anderson also had 14 points. He was a plus 26 for the Golden State Warriors, the best plus-minus on the night for this Warriors basketball team. The Dallas Mavericks got 25 points from Kristaps Porzingis, which seemed to feel really empty for a guy who's been really bad this year on the defensive end, one of the worst defensive ratings in all of the NBA at the center position. Luka Doncic was a negative 28 despite having 27 points in 32 minutes of play. And the story of this game was the defense. You don't need me to go through each of the quarters, but I'll go through them anyway, because the Golden State Warriors had 4 quarters of over 35 points, 36 in the first, 38 in the second, 36 in the third quarter, where they outscored the Mavericks 36-20, and then in the fourth quarter, 37-20. After the game, Kristaps Porzingis said that this Dallas Mavericks team watched the entire third quarter. In fact, here is Kristaps Porzingis talking about what happened after the game was over with and what the Mavericks did, delaying their press availability after the game was over with. Here's Kristaps Porzingis talking about that.
Hey, KP obviously struggled on the defensive end tonight. What is the message right now with this team with respect to getting better on the defensive end? Is that message being communicated effectively enough for you guys to play that way night in and night out?
Yeah, we're a little bit up and down with our defense. We watched the whole third quarter. Now after the game, we sat in the locker room and we looked at our mistakes. And obviously we all understand that was a back-to-back, and that's a team that moves around a lot and running around and create shooters all around. It was just one of those nights where they were hitting a lot of good looks, but also a lot of tough ones, and they made them. And we kept fighting, but just was one of those nights tonight.
So I asked Kristaps Porzingis, obviously, what went wrong, and is the message still resonating with this team with respect to how to play defense? And you heard his answer there. That's the major question right now about this Dallas Mavericks basketball team. Is the message still resonating from head coach Rick Carlisle? Rick Carlisle has come under fire under recent days and weeks because of how badly this team has played, because the emphasis coming into this season what this team was going to get better on the defensive end. That hasn't happened so far this year. Now you say, Kevin, you got to keep it in perspective here. This is a team that has been hit hard by COVID-19. They were playing only their third game with their full entire roster intact, with Maxi Kleber back for this Mavericks basketball team. But yet and still, the pace and the space and the passing and creativity of one Draymond Green, the inability for this team to defend the 5-out spacing that the Golden State Warriors put forth with Draymond Green at the center position, and then letting guys get off all night long with layup lines and dunks to the basket. This team is really bad. There's no other way to say it right now about how this Mavericks team is playing. Here's Rick Carlisle talking about the defensive effort, or lack thereof, obviously, against the Golden State Warriors and what ultimately doomed them in this basketball game where they lost by 31 points. Here is Rick Carlisle after the game.
And Coach, from a spacing standpoint, what was Draymond Green able to do from a spacing and a passing standpoint that gave you guys issues tonight?
Well, he was very comfortable. He was able to have airspace and to see and to deliver passes and to deliver some thread the needle passes. And we're going to have to do a better job of getting ball pressure on him. He's a point guard. He's an unusual point guard, power forward. And, the chemistry that he has with Curry, creates a unique problem. And when those two guys are on the floor and wheeling and dealing, it makes the other three guys on the floor, better players. And so, it's part of the equation that we have to work on. But look, we're going to have to be more tied together. We're going to have greater urgency with transition defense and sitting down and guarding. And this is a big challenge.
So Rick Carlisle obviously extremely disappointed in the defensive effort that this Mavs team continues to put out. And that is not something that you normally question with a Rick Carlisle basketball team. And it's funny because before this season, I asked a lot of individuals about going into this season if Rick Carlisle was still the right man for the job when it comes to leading this particular squad, given the trajectory on whether they were headed based on the results that they had this past season by making it to the first round of the Western Conference playoffs, giving a competitive series to the Los Angeles Clippers before ultimately losing in 6 games. So far, this team is 9-14 on the season, and in a 72-game season, you cannot go through 2 and 3 week stretches where you are losing 6 out of 7, 7 out of 8 basketball games and find yourself competitive, not just in this season overall from a winning standpoint, but in a Western Conference where teams are stacked on top of each other like crazy. And the Dallas Mavericks so far this season have been a model of inconsistency when it comes to both ends of the floor, and more importantly, how poorly this defense has been playing all season long, especially in the middle from Kristaps Porzingis. As I mentioned, one of the worst defensive ratings in all of the NBA at the center position. It seems like the mentality of this team has been very soft as of late, and it starts at the center position with the lack of resistance in the paint. And then when you see what the Golden State Warriors did, getting layups and dunks whenever they wanted to, the passing, the spacing, and the creativity from Draymond Green, Stephen Curry, of course, does what he does. But then, more so than anything, you let Kelly Oubre get off on you for 40 points. That's completely inexcusable for a guy that's only averaged 12 points. Jalen Brunson talked about it after the game with respect to what this team has to do and the lack of defense that they have been playing and what needs to happen for this team to begin to turn it around. Here's what Jalen Brunson had to say.
Yeah, Jalen, what was the theme of the post-game discussion about?
Defense. Defense.
And
oh, sorry, Brad, unmute again. Cut you off there.
yeah, specifically, what about the defense?
You gotta play it. That's unheard of. 147 points is unheard of. So yeah, I've said this so many times in post-game interviews. We've done the things that we know we can do defensively. It's just we got to do it on every game basis.
So Jalen Brunson said, hey, we just got to play defense. And that's honestly how simple it is at this point. The lack of effort, the lack of focus and attention to detail, the lack of execution on the defensive end has put this team in a position where there are a lot of questions about how this team is not only playing the defense, but how this team is constructed based on the roster that they have. They brought in a guy in Josh Richardson to be a better perimeter defender. Now, I understand any matchup against Stephen Curry is a tough one for any guard in this league. But the Olay defense that the Dallas Mavericks have played for most of this season Has been a poor reflection on the roster construction of this team, the inconsistency of that roster construction, and more so than anything, questions about whether or not the message of Rick Carlisle is resonating with this team about how to play defense and to do so with the kind of consistent ferocity and intensity that is needed night in and night out to win games in the Western Conference when you know the kinds of teams that are in this conference. When you go to the Jazz, the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Blazers, any number of teams that you want to name, this team struggles against with respect to how consistently they play on the defensive end night in and night out. So the question will be, can the Dallas Mavericks find themselves playing a measure of consistency that allows them to get better on the defensive end going into the rest of this season? Luka Doncic especially was bad in this particular basketball game. In the second half alone, only 4 points on 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 2 from the three-point line, 3 assists, and 2 turnovers. And for the game, finished with a net rating, a plus-minus, I should say, of negative 28. This Mavs team is a bad basketball team. As I said earlier, there's no other way to say it when you look at how this team is played. Questions about whether or not this team has the ability or wants to play defense at this point. Has the message from Rick Carlisle become stale about how this team needs to move forward with its superstar in Luka Doncic? Kristaps Porzingis on whether or not he has become a player that has regressed from the defensive end of the basketball despite his offensive game starting to come into form, and whether or not the makeup and roster construction of this team will give you confidence going forward if you're a Mavericks fan about how this team will look going forward, especially in a Western Conference that continues to get deeper and deeper year after year. And after what the Golden State Warriors did to the Dallas Mavericks, this isn't about soul searching. This isn't about any of those cliches that you normally hear. This is about want to. This is about putting forth effort that should not be questioned night after night when a team in the Golden State Warriors scored 54 points in the paint. As I mentioned, it seemed like a layup line and dunk fest all night long for this Golden State Warrior basketball team, and guys that you had never really heard of going off for double figures, and obviously the inability to match up in space, especially defensively, with Kristaps Porzingis being a liability in this particular game, where pace and space and the 5-out offense with Draymond Green at the point center position, the Mavericks had no shot in this game. You didn't expect the Golden State Warriors to shoot over 50% from the field and from the three-point line, but at the same time, the way and the inconsistency that this Mavericks team has played with this year, we probably should have saw this coming. The Golden State Warriors are, a former shell of themselves with no James Wiseman, no Kevon Looney, no Klay Thompson, and yet they also didn't have a guy over 6'7" in this lineup, and they took the Mavericks to the woodshed night over and over and over again. So the question, if you're a Mavs fan, is where did the Mavs go from here? That's a heck of a question, because after what you saw against the Golden State Warriors, who knows at this point? But there's only one way that this team can go up based on the rock-bottom nature that we think that they finally hit against the Golden State Warriors, and that's up. And that starts with a rematch against the Golden State Warriors themselves on Saturday, when they have an opportunity to exact some kind of revenge after the beatdown that they suffered at the hands of the Warriors on Thursday evening in a nationally televised game. We know what the Mavericks need in terms of player personnel. They need a guy who can go get his own bucket, a Bradley Beal type of Victor Oladipo, Zach LaVine, whomever you want to throw in there. But more importantly, this team has to get back to not only shooting the basketball from three, which they actually did in this game, but more importantly, defending the basketball and showing the want to and effort to do so. Because I could break down all kinds of numbers and statistics about defensive rating, offensive rating, field goal percentage, true field goal percentage, all of those things. None of that matters. What matters is the message that this Mavericks team is sending to its fans right now and how pathetically they're playing. That's a team, as Luka Doncic said just a short time ago, they don't look like they care, especially when it comes to playing defense. And that is a reflection of maybe its head coach and the message that's being lost on these players and this team with respect to how they get down with their business, because they ain't handling it right now. especially if you watch the Mavericks play night in and night out. We'll see what happens. Dallas Mavericks get back on the floor on Saturday night when they take on the Golden State Warriors after suffering a 31-point beatdown at the hands of Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and some dude named Juan Toscano Anderson at the American Airlines Center. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel also right here at Kevin Gray Sports. We'll talk to you later. Peace.